Time now to go to Joanne Campbell, a solicitor at Tormeys Solicitors in Athlone. Joanne is going to talk to us all things about the Motor Insurers Bureau of Ireland and look at that kind of legal process if there is a kind of a road traffic incident or an accident on the road and the steps involved in that. If somebody listening has been involved or indeed maybe is involved in an accident involving an uninsured or an uninsured driver or an unidentified vehicle, what are the typical steps then they can take if they discover, say, quite quickly in real time that actually this person has no insurance? What do you do next?
In a hit and run type situation, the Garda investigation is very important because the MIBI is seen as the fund of last resort. So if there is an insurance policy in place that can cover the accident, they will step in, and the MIBI will only become involved once all other investigations have been exhausted to ensure that there is no insurance policy there. So the first thing I would say is always to contact the Gardaí. If you can, and if you're, if it's possible, take photographs. So that'll help, because in the moment, you think you'll recall everything that happened on the day, but sometimes a week later you're thinking, what was the make and model of that car? Do I have all the details? So basic things like the make and model, if you can take a photograph of whatever cert is on their dash to show what the cover is, obviously all of that is very helpful. And you'll have those then, because sometimes our memory fails us with some of these things. Then obviously if you're injured, the immediate thing is to make sure you're okay, go to your doctor. And if it's a thing that there's an injury that you should be, that you need further care, or that you have loss of earnings or medical expenses, then down the road you can submit a claim to the MIBI, and there's a claim form, and it covers everything. It's all the details, and the more information you give them, the more helpful it is in terms of dealing with the claim. So the more that they have, the more they can help you. At the same time, a claim must be submitted to the Injuries Resolution Board. So that's the board that deals with compensation claims in Ireland, and they will arrange to have you independently medically examined and deal with the claim. But once the MIBI have completed their investigation, they'll appoint somebody to deal with your claim through the Injuries Resolution Board.
And they will look at establishing, the insurance position of the alleged offending vehicle or the driver, and they'll look for those Garda reports as well. And you mentioned photographs that, whilst maybe it can be hard to remember precisely what happened, sometimes people's memories change a little bit as to the circumstances. We often hear that of, did anybody admit and maybe fault for it, and actually then that can change as well. So things like photographs become crucial at this point.
Absolutely. The more information you have, the better you are equipped to deal with it as time goes on. And, once you have that, it's there, you can save it, you can pass it on to the MIBI, to your solicitor, and they'll retain all of that for dealing with the claim on your behalf.
If the MIBI have investigated then, a report as well, and they establish that there's an uninsured driver there, but your car has been significantly damaged and there's a bill outstanding, how is that then compensated, or where can repayments be made at that instance?
So in that situation, your own cover actually on your own policy will deal with the claim as part of the MIBI agreement and the agreement between the various insurance companies. It's the way they deal with it is that you make a claim under your own comprehensive policy of insurance. They will pay out your material damage, and your no claims bonus will not be affected because it's arising from a claim involving an uninsured driver. Also, your policy excess won't apply because you're entitled to be compensated for your loss in full, notwithstanding that it was caused as a result of an uninsured driver. And that's part of the agreement that's in place between all the various insurance companies and the MIBI.
As they did, because again, it is that fact that there are so many uninsured drivers on Irish roads as well, which in turn, increases. Everybody pays an increase on their premium just to cover that very fact as well. And I say that the work is being done to try to significantly reduce those numbers. Technology obviously playing a huge role too. In terms of looking at sort of the best action, then again at that time of an incident as well, gathering that information, and reporting it back to insurance companies. Is it a case of the quicker you get back, the better at that point, or is it better to make sure you have gathered all the evidence and all the facts first?
No, the immediate thing would be to notify the Gardaí, notify your own insurance company, and certainly even just to lodge the claim and have it set up on their system, and they can deal with it then. And information can be provided as and when it comes to hand. It's not necessary that you wait until you have everything before you submit the claim. Certainly giving them the initial details and the available information, and often the Garda investigation might take time, so I wouldn't wait until until that's finalised, it's important that you do it as soon as possible after an accident, notify it, and then the information will be gathered as the matter proceeds.
Absolutely, because again, it can be quite complex too, and there can be a lot of different factors in it as well. But overall, it seems like the basic advice hasn't changed much in a couple of years, just to make sure you've got all that stuff lined up.
Absolutely. And like the Gardaí are reporting, month on month since they obtained access to the insurance database, that the seizure of vehicles arising out of people driving with no insurance has increased month on month. So you'd hope, with this concerted effort, that as it continues, this will be tackled and hopefully reduced on our roads.
But we touched on briefly the Injuries Resolution Board. So in the event of a claim for personal injury, an application must also be sent to the Injuries Resolution Board. Can you take us maybe briefly through that process, Joanne, and where the onus of proof, I suppose, on an actual on an injury lies?
Event, you can complete the form yourself, but it's preferable to consult a solicitor, and they will take you through all the aspects of the form that need to be completed. Your GP will also prepare a medical report which will set out the details of your injuries and a prognosis in terms of your recovery, and that is all submitted to the Injuries Resolution Board with a fee of €45. The Injuries Resolution Board will then review your case and arrange an independent medical examination, and they will then assess the claim pursuant to the personal injury guidelines, which were introduced in 2021, and submit an assessment to you and to the defendant, which can be accepted by both parties. And if that's the case, that will resolve the claim. Or alternatively, if either party rejects the assessment, they'll issue an authorisation, and that will authorise you to go ahead and bring legal proceedings if it's necessary.
And when it comes to problem with injuries, is specifically a physical injury, or can people be compensated for things like stress or anxiety that may have been caused by an incident?
Absolutely. Often you'll have a situation where somebody has physical injuries, and there may also be an element of post-traumatic stress or psychological injury arising out of the claim, and that will also be looked at by the Injuries Resolution Board, and they will assess damages on the basis of those injuries also.
Okay, so it can be a broader scope than, say, just an actual injury that, say, for example, can be scanned, or an X-ray can be produced too. It can be, because you can imagine how a situation that could cause a lot of distress for somebody, particularly if somebody is somebody who's always had their insurance premiums and paid, always had their car insured, has their car roadworthy, to be involved in this with maybe another person who you could say has neglected that and is just taking a chance on it.
Absolutely, yes. And in situations where you are involved with an accident with an uninsured driver, or with maybe a hit and run in an unidentified vehicle, the stress can be compounded, because I suppose there is more involved in investigating that claim and more contact with the Gardaí necessary, and absolutely it's a stressful event and a traumatic event.
Do many cases ultimately end up then going to the courts?
There's been a huge rise in the number of cases that are resolving through the Injuries Resolution Board, and they now have a mediation service which helps in terms of resolving cases. But there's always going to be a percentage that cannot be resolved, and sometimes maybe there's complex medical issues that need to be investigated, and they can't be dealt with within the time frame allowed in the Injuries Resolution Board, or somebody's injuries are ongoing for a protracted period and maybe they require further assessment or possible surgery that they're waiting on. And in those situations you will have cases where it's necessary to issue legal proceedings.
And again, it could depend on the severity of the incident or how it occurred in the circumstances. That can be a different process. Can you take us through typically what happens if somebody feels maybe that their claim hasn't been met, or that they weren't at fault, or even if they have an issue maybe that their insurance company might have paid out on something where they felt, look, I wasn't the fault for this accident. How can somebody deal with a situation like that?
Absolutely, and there are a lot of the cases that do go before the courts, because the Injuries Resolution Board can deal with claims where if both parties are in agreement. But obviously if you have a driver who feels they weren't responsible for the accident, they're entitled to defend that case and say, even though a claim has been submitted against their insurance policy, they feel that they weren't responsible, and they're entitled to call that evidence and any available witnesses and a Garda who might have investigated the accident. And nowadays with claims, there's often dash cam footage, which is just invaluable in terms of dealing with the circumstances of the accident and what actually occurred on the day.
And actually that is, it's regularly a call even from the Gardaí that if anybody has dash cam footage of an incident, to support with them. So the legal basis behind that is that is dash cam footage obviously admissible if a case does go to court? And because in that case, nearly will we get to a point where insurance companies are maybe almost mandating that we all have dash cams in our cars?
Absolutely. I mean, you see it more and more, and they're a feature of much more litigation now than they would have been even when I started my career. They're admissible, and certainly a judge will want to see what happened in real time on the day. And they're often used in cases now where there is a dispute in relation to liability. I don't know if we'll see a situation where the insurance companies are mandating it, but certainly it's in a person's interest to have the dash cam, and it's great to have it there if you are wrongly accused of being responsible for an accident that wasn't your fault,
And it's something that's very prevalent even within the haulage and logistics sectors. Many commercial vehicles would have cameras like that, and often they are a game changer when it comes to maybe dismissing, where somebody maybe tries to make a claim or a fraudulent claim, and straight away it can be demonstrated that actually no, there was no incident to report at all there. So it's been used very effectively. When it comes to the footage from dash cams, then are there any criteria around like the quality of the imaging, or how far away from an incident it possibly is at the minute, or is generally all footage considered to be some sort of evidence that could support a claim, or indeed to counteract a claim?
I think anything available that will show the accident is always helpful, and you'll get an angle or a view. The quality of these dash cam footage, dash cams, has increased dramatically. And it used to be a situation where Dublin Bus would have cameras on their buses, and the quality was fantastic. Across the board now, on any dash cam footage, you see that the quality is massively improved. No more than our mobile phones. The cameras just seem to improve all the time.
And will insurers, do any insurers actually incentivize people to have a dash cam on their car? Does it reduce their premium yet? Or is that something that we possibly will see down the line?
I think we will, and you see it with insurance companies where they, have monitors on vehicles, and, where you don't go above a certain speed limit, or maybe for learner drivers, they have certain things in place that help bring down their premiums if they agree to allow the vehicle to have a tracker. I think that could be a feature as we move forward. Yes, absolutely.
Well, Joanne, thank you so much for that this morning. A comprehensive introduction and a guide to the Motor Insurers Bureau of Ireland as well, and even touching things like the Injuries Resolution Board, and giving that insight into the role that modern technology is playing too, in terms of particularly in tackling fraudulent claims or instances where there's an uninsured driver or an unverified vehicle. Joanne Campbell, solicitor at Tormeys Solicitors LLP, thank you so much for that this morning.